On July 19th, 2016, the town of Maple Hollow, Montana, fell into a nightmare from which it has never truly awakened. The Ristel family, Evan, Caroline, Clara, and Isaac, were known as the ideal neighbors. Evan was a brilliant pediatric neurologist, respected statewide for his work with terminally ill children. Caroline, an art therapist, volunteered at the local women's shelter. Their daughter Clara was 15, academically gifted and passionate about wildlife. Isaac, their 10-year-old son, was shy but loved astronomy and could name every constellation in the night sky. Their two-story craftsman-style home stood at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. Surrounded by trimmed hedges and flower beds Caroline tended herself. It was a picture of suburban bliss, until the night Rebecca Lorne, Caroline's sister, returned from a trip and found a wooden box on the porch marked for you. Inside were two severed human hands, carefully wrapped in lavender-scented tissue paper. One of them still wore Caroline's wedding ring. Rebecca dialed 911. Officers arrived at the Ristel house just before midnight. The front door was unlocked. The home was dim, silent. The family portrait in the living room had been slashed down the center. In the kitchen sink, investigators found long strands of brown hair. On the upstairs bathroom mirror, written in red lipstick were the words, "He took everything from me." No one was inside. Clara's textbooks remained open on her desk. Isaac's telescope still pointed out his bedroom window. Caroline's phone was located by GPS just 2 miles from the home, but by the time search teams arrived, it had gone dead. Evan Ristel, the husband and father, was nowhere to be found. As detectives searched the house, they uncovered Caroline's therapy journals locked in her private studio. She had been writing about Evan for months. "I don't know who he is anymore," she wrote on May 4th. "He comes home smelling like bleach. The kids are scared of him lately. I hear sounds in the attic. I think he's watching us even when he's supposed to be at work." Neighbors had seen Evan digging at odd hours in the backyard. They assumed he was starting a new garden bed. When cadaver dogs were brought in, they alerted near the children's old swing set. Investigators dug 6 feet down and found a rusted metal box. Inside were 3 teeth, later confirmed to be Caroline's, a burnt corner of Clara's diary, and a butcher knife crusted with dried blood. On August 3rd, 2 weeks after the grisly discovery, the FBI received an anonymous package with no return address. It contained 6 VHS tapes. Each tape bore a name: Caroline, Clara, Isaac. One tape was labeled, in bold red marker, "Play Last." What the tapes revealed would shake even the most seasoned investigators. The footage showed Clara, tied to a chair, visibly bruised, crying. Off camera, Evan's voice could be heard saying, "They never listened. No one listened. Now they'll hear me forever." Authorities confirmed the tapes were authentic, but by the time they were received, Evan Ristel had already crossed multiple state lines and vanished without a trace. To this day, Clara and Isaac have never been found. And that final tape, the one labeled "Play Last," the package arrived at the FBI's Missoula field office in an unmarked brown envelope. No fingerprints. No DNA. Inside, 6 VHS tapes and a single note written in erratic, blocky handwriting. They wanted truth. Give them this. Each tape was carefully labeled Caroline, Clara, Isaac, he, us, and one marked simply "Play Last." The first tape opened with static, then a dimly lit room. A single overhead bulb flickered. Caroline sat in a wooden chair, arms bound, mouth gagged. Blood stained the floor beneath her feet. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were wide open, not with pain, but with something worse. Terror. She blinked repeatedly. Morse code. Later analysis confirmed she was trying to signal, "Help me." The second tape showed Clara. She was tied the same way. This time, Evan's voice could be heard clearly, calm, almost gentle. "You don't understand, sweetheart. None of you ever did. But you will. They all will." Clara cried out, "Why are you doing this?" His reply chilled agents to their bones. "Because I love you more than anyone ever could. And that kind of love doesn't fit into this world." The Isaac tape was the most disturbing. The boy sat cross-legged on the cold floor, silent, unmoving. His eyes were swollen from crying. There was no dialogue, just a ticking of clock in the background, growing louder and louder minute after minute. Experts later noticed that behind Isaac was a large map pinned to the wall, with red string linking several rural towns. One of them, a remote area in Idaho, was circled in black ink. FBI agents rushed to the location. It was an abandoned summer cabin once owned by Evan's deceased father. They arrived just after dawn. The property was overgrown, the front door padlocked from the inside. In the basement, they found evidence that children had been kept there. 2 twin mattresses, chains anchored to the wall, a stack of Isaac's comic books, and a blood-stained stuffed animal belonging to Clara. But there were no bodies. Instead, taped to the basement wall, was a note. They were here. Now they're not. Love moves. Like shadows. The next 2 tapes, he and us, showed footage from inside the Ristol home in the months leading up to the murders. Surveillance video. Secretly recorded. Caroline cooking, unaware. Clara studying. Isaac sleeping. Evan watching, always watching. He had installed more than 14 hidden cameras throughout the house. In one clip, Evan is seen standing at the foot of Clara's bed at 3:12 a.m. He doesn't move for 11 minutes. In another, he is in the attic, whispering to himself. He told me to do it. He told me what they were. They're not real. They're empty. I had to fill them. A forensic psychologist later diagnosed the behavior as signs of paranoid schizophrenia with a religious delusional component. But the tape suggested something darker, more purposeful, more ritualistic. One final mystery remained. The 6th and final tape. The one labeled Play Last. The FBI waited weeks to release it. There were debates about whether to make it public at all. But eventually, under pressure from the families, it was played behind closed doors. What it contained has never been fully released. Only fragments have leaked. It begins with Evan, sitting in a white room, speaking directly to the camera. "This will be the last time you see me," he says. "But I'm not done." He places a gun on the table in front of him, next to a photograph of Clara and Isaac. Then he smiles. Not a twisted grin. A calm, warm smile, as if he were proud. He reaches into his coat pocket and places something else on the table. A folded birth certificate. But not for Clara. Not for Isaac. For another child. A name no one in the family had ever heard. 1 week later, a tip came in from a payphone in Oregon. A child had been found wandering alone on the edge of a national forest, barefoot, covered in dirt. He refused to speak. But when shown photographs, he pointed to Evan Ristol's face, then whispered just 2 words. "He's coming." The boy found in the forest was around 11 years old, underweight, and badly dehydrated. His feet were raw from walking barefoot over jagged terrain. Park rangers discovered him just before sunrise near the edge of Deschutes National Forest in Oregon. When questioned, he wouldn't say his name, wouldn't answer to Isaac, wouldn't respond to Clara's photo. But when investigators showed him a photo of Evan Ristol, the boy became visibly agitated, covering his ears, rocking back and forth. Then quietly he whispered 2 words. "He's coming." The child was taken to a secure trauma facility under federal protection. For 3 days he barely spoke. On the 4th, he asked for a pencil and paper. He drew a cabin. The same cabin the FBI had already searched. But this time, something was different. In the drawing, there was a trapdoor hidden beneath the floorboards. Agents returned immediately. Armed with thermal scanners and ground-penetrating radar, they searched again and found it. A concealed basement compartment, sealed with a steel plate. Inside, a small room no larger than a closet. There was a cot, a camera tripod, and on the wall, dozens of photographs. Not of Clara, not of Isaac, but of other children. 15 in total. Boys and girls between the ages of 7 and 12. All photographed in the same dim lighting. All with the same dead stare. None of them matched any missing persons cases on record. One photo was different, torn down the middle, only half of a child's face visible. On the back, a single name was scrawled in smudged ink, The Woken. Investigators feared they had stumbled into something far beyond a case of domestic violence or family annihilation. Patterns began to emerge. Strange ones. Each of the towns Evan had circled on a map were linked by proximity to psychiatric facilities. More disturbingly, old security logs from those institutions revealed that Evan had visited some under aliases, posing as a researcher or consultant, all unregistered, all undocumented. In one facility in Idaho, surveillance footage from 2015 showed Evan speaking with a girl named Lena Griggs, a 9-year-old patient admitted for dissociation and violent hallucinations. She had no family. A year after that footage was recorded, Lena vanished. She wasn't the only one. Over the course of 6 years, at least 7 unclaimed minors had disappeared from 4 different institutions across 3 states. No official links had ever been made, until now. Evan's journals, recovered from a secret compartment in his office desk, revealed a disturbing obsession. He wrote about the children as transcendents, beings he believed were cut from the fabric of something deeper. In one passage, he wrote, "Caroline never saw it. Clara pretended not to, but Isaac knows. He hears them too, and soon he'll remember who he is." On November 3rd, 2016, the boy from the forest finally gave a name. "My name is Noah Ristel," but that wasn't possible. There was no record of a third child, no birth certificate, no school files, no photos of him anywhere in the Ristel home. Yet DNA testing confirmed it. The boy was biologically Evan and Caroline's son. When authorities confronted Rebecca Lorne, Caroline's sister, she broke down. Through sobs, she confessed that Caroline had given birth to a third child in secret in 2005, during a period when she and Evan were briefly separated. Caroline never reported the birth, never told anyone. She had hidden the pregnancy from Evan, or at least she thought she had. Noah was born prematurely, weak. Doctors weren't sure he'd survive. Caroline had planned to give him up for adoption, but someone intervened. Evan found him first and took him. Years passed. Caroline thought the child had died, but Evan had kept him, raised him in isolation, hidden from the world, warped by indoctrination and ritual. The real horror was only beginning to take shape, because in the final footage recovered from the hidden basement, Noah, maybe 7 or 8 at the time, stands before the camera holding something, a journal, one not written by Evan, but by Clara. She wrote one final message across its final page in thick, black ink. "If you find this, then he's not done. Not yet. He said he needs 4, one to replace each of us, and he already found the first." The video ends with the sound of a child crying, but not from Noah, from someone else. A girl's voice, trembling, muffled, calling out the name Clara. The girl's voice on the tape was faint but distinct. "Clara, Clara, please come back." Forensic analysis confirmed it wasn't Clara. The voice belonged to someone else, someone younger, an unknown female child, age estimated between 6 and 8. Her tone was panicked, her words muffled as if she were calling out from behind a wall. The audio was traced to the final tape, recovered from the hidden compartment, but the visual footage cut out halfway through. There was no image of the girl, no clues about where she was being held, only her voice and the sound of something dragging across a concrete floor in the background. Investigators feared the worst. Another captive, another child Evan had taken. But this time, the evidence suggested she was still alive. The tape also included coordinates, a GPS location deep in Nevada's high desert, near the ruins of an old mining town called Iloan Ridge. The town had been abandoned since 1971 after a series of unexplained fires and a mine collapse that killed 9 workers. But Evan had been there. Travel records showed that his car had been flagged in Nevada 2 months before the murders. Surveillance footage placed him at a gas station 40 miles from Iloan Ridge. He purchased food, water, batteries, and rope. Agents were dispatched immediately. Iloan Ridge was desolate. The air was dry, the roads barely passable. All that remained were the rotted shells of a general store, a chapel, and a collapsed boarding house. Beneath the boarding house, investigators discovered a makeshift shelter, reinforced with steel and concrete, with a hidden ventilation shaft and 2 access points. Inside, they found evidence of recent occupation, a mattress, food wrappers, an old tape recorder, and drawings scrawled on the walls in charcoal. One image appeared again and again. A man with no face, surrounded by children, all of them kneeling. Beneath it, one word had been scratched into the plaster. Father. But there was no sign of Clara, no sign of Isaac, and no trace of the girl from the tape. What investigators did find was a small, dusty cabinet containing dozens of items, mementos, taken from various victims. Clara's necklace, Caroline's broken glasses, a music box Isaac used to fall asleep to, hair ties, a baby shoe, a burned ID card from a long-defunct children's asylum in Utah. The final item was a VHS cassette labeled simply The Ritual. The footage was never released to the public. Only a handful of agents were cleared to view it. The expressions on their faces afterward told more than words ever could. One agent resigned the next day. The video showed 4 children standing in a circle, each holding a candle. They didn't appear scared. They weren't tied up. They were chanting. Evan stood behind them, wearing a long black coat, speaking softly in a language no one recognized. At one point, he turns to the camera and says, "They have been chosen. Not by me. I am only the guide." As the video ends, there is static, then a still frame, a symbol, drawn in ash and blood, 4 rings, interlocking, with a single eye in the center. Symbol recognition software identified it as a variation of the sigil of Baphomet, but with elements matching a much older glyph found in 15th century manuscripts on forbidden ritual practice. The FBI called an occult crime specialist. Her conclusion: Evan was building something, not just a belief system, but a structure, a ritualized framework for indoctrination. He wasn't improvising. He was following steps. They called it the Doctrine of 4. The theory was horrifying. For children, taken over years, raised in secrecy, reshaped psychologically and spiritually for a singular purpose, one that had not yet been revealed. But it was the next clue that changed everything. In one of Noah's drawings, recovered from his trauma facility room, he had scribbled a crude family, 1 man, 3 children, and next to them a 4th figure, circled in red. The face was left blank. Beneath it, a name was written over and over again, the Woken. Just hours later, another child went missing, 7-year-old Lily Reyes, taken from her foster home in northern Utah. No witnesses, no signs of forced entry, no camera footage, just an open bedroom window and a trail of ash leading to the woods behind the house. On her pillow, someone had left a folded piece of paper. Inside was a single sentence: "The 4th has been found." 7-year-old Lily Reyes vanished in the early hours of December 4th, 2016. She had been living with her 3rd foster family in 2 years, quiet, withdrawn, and often drawing symbols no one understood. The night before she disappeared, her foster mother, Dana Wells, had tucked her into bed just after 8 p.m. By morning, Lily was gone. There was no sign of a break-in. The window was cracked open, no fingerprints, just soot on the sill. Her favorite stuffed animal had been left behind, untouched. But in the corner of the room, drawn onto the wooden floor with what appeared to be charcoal and dried blood, was the same symbol found in the Lowen Ridge shelter: 4 interlocking rings, a single eye at the center. Lily Reyes had become the 4th, the Woken. In the days that followed, the FBI formed a multi-state task force. For the first time, Evan Ristel was publicly named as the primary suspect not only in the Ristel family murders, but in what was now classified as an organized cult abduction operation. But even with nationwide alerts, Evan was nowhere to be found, and neither were Clara, Isaac, or the missing children believed to be part of what agents were now calling the Doctrine. A breakthrough came from an unexpected place: Noah. In a rare lucid moment, he spoke to his trauma counselor and said something cryptic. "When the sky breaks, it begins. That's when he'll wake her. That's when she'll remember." He was referring to Lily. Noah claimed he had seen her before, not in real life, but in the dark place, the same dream all the children were forced to draw, over and over again. He said they were being trained for something. "Each of us has a piece," he whispered, "but only she can open it. A search through Lily Reyes' past unearthed something deeply unsettling. As an infant, she had been adopted, briefly, by a couple in Colorado. The adoption was terminated just 6 months later, when the husband died under mysterious circumstances. His name was Dr. Harold Kessler. He was a psychiatrist, and one of Evan Ristel's former professors. Kessler had taught behavioral neuroscience and was rumored to have worked with classified research on childhood trauma and identity fragmentation. His death had been ruled accidental, carbon monoxide poisoning, but the report had inconsistencies. The furnace had been tampered with. There were no carbon monoxide detectors in the home, despite records showing they had been installed just months earlier. When agents returned to the old Kessler property, now abandoned, they found remnants of something far more disturbing. In the basement, a locked metal trunk. Inside were lab notebooks, old microcassette recordings, and over 200 photographs of children in isolated environments, many appearing drugged or asleep. Several of the children were identified as missing persons, including Lena Griggs and a boy known only as Matthew R. But one photo stood out. It was of Evan Ristel, as a teenager, wearing a white gown, head shaved, sitting in a steel chair, electrodes attached to his scalp, eyes wide open. He wasn't just Kessler's student. He had been Kessler's subject. Documents revealed that Evan had been part of a covert psychological conditioning study as a child, one designed to create controlled dissociation for experimental re-imprinting. In simpler terms, the study attempted to erase and rebuild identity. What Kessler started, Evan continued, except Evan had taken it further. He wasn't just reshaping children. He was preparing them. One of the microcassettes held a final message from Kessler, likely recorded before his death. "I've made a mistake. He remembers everything. He was never supposed to remember. If he finds a fourth, if he finds the girl, I pray to God it stops with her." That night, a second child went missing, a boy named Jacob Niles, 8 years old, taken from a rural psychiatric facility in Arizona. Security cameras showed nothing, but the janitor, who had been working the night shift, reported hearing music echoing through the halls. A music box, one matching the melody from Isaac Ristel's old lullaby. The boy's empty bed had been turned down neatly. On his pillow, a single word written in ashes: "Soon." 3 days later, the FBI received a package in Washington, D.C. No return address. Inside was a VHS tape.